Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Thinking Reimagined. We're joined today by the Bature co-founder and director, and of course, Nifemi, my co-host, is with us this afternoon. Welcome, Nifemi.
Welcome, Dr. Amma, and welcome everyone to the Thinking Reimagined podcast. Usually, most businesses are built for profit. But growing issues of the environment and sustainable development have now given rise to the concept of sustainable entrepreneurship. And that's what we're talking about on this episode. The business strategy that focuses on increasing value for society, the environment, as much as for the company and business itself. Like Dr. Amma said, Prince Benga Oguntayo has joined us, founder Yoyode Foods, director with Bature Brewery. Is also chairperson Live Abundantly. Prince has spent a quarter of a century in the downstream petroleum retail industry, is now in food and beverage. Kevin Conroy, entrepreneur and investment consultant, is co-founder of Nigeria's first craft brewery, Bature. Yinka Oyegoke, entrepreneur, sustainable trade advocate, communications expert, and coach, is co-founder of the Africa Sustainable Trade. You heard our voice first, Dr. Amma, immediate past chairperson of the British Business Group Nigeria, currently chairperson Africa Sustainable Trade, which she co-founds. Welcome aboard, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, or let's say ladies, just in case there are other ladies also joining us virtually. All right, so please be free to raise your hand if you have a thought while another person is speaking. We'd like to keep the conversation here very spontaneous. So we understand that companies considering environmental and social aspects are today considered to be innovative. But making profit is still key to any thriving business, right? Doesn't sound as simple as it seems. So let me ask the entrepreneurs here. Who wants to go first? Perhaps we should begin by just exhausting what the biggest challenges today are for sustainable entrepreneurship and the opportunities for sustainability-focused businesses, Dr. Amma.
Nifemi, before we dive into that, I want to really thank Kevin and Benga for joining us today. Many people don't know this, but the very first episode of Thinking Reimagined was actually at Bature Brewery. So this is really a chance for us to host an organization that gave us a platform for our launch. It was also the first time that we were actually in a public space. And I hope that Bature will welcome us back to another public podcast in the months to come. So thank you very much. And this is our third season, and it means a lot to us to have you join us on this platform virtually.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
No, thank you. And it really speaks to the whole story of sustainability, because when you think about it, we approached you and asked if we could host our podcast at the Bature venue. And because of the way you have built the business, you encourage community to come in and have events there. You have intergenerational audience at Bature, and you include the community and environment in much of what you do. And really, when you think about sustainable businesses, we're looking at impact. What is the impact of their business? All businesses want to thrive financially, but what is the impact? The long-term sustainability is very crucial. So I actually believe that this question should be turned over to one of the other entrepreneurs is here, either Kevin or Benga or Yinka, which of you would like to start the conversation today?
I'm happy to go first. I think that when I think of entrepreneurship, right, I think of what is the old version of entrepreneurship? What happened before that? And if we go back to it, it would be called a business person, right? And I think the difference between a business person and an entrepreneur is that in the old days, you're buying X ginger at $1, and you want to sell it for $10, right? If you get a good margin, right? An entrepreneur perhaps says, I've got this ginger, how can I add value to it? So I think of that because I think an entrepreneur's brain is always thinking, how can we solve a problem? And when you go from a point of solving a problem, then you're not just only making profit ultimately, but you're also adding value. So I think of my 2-year-old who hates ginger, now that we're talking about it, right? But if I put it with bananas and strawberries and make a smoothie, right? And put the ginger in, I get it to have the ginger and I get it to, so that's the kind of the analogy that it kind of describes the old model of being business versus entrepreneur. And I think that when we add sustainability to it, ultimately as a business, you have to be sustainable. And it's no longer just about profit. We have to protect the planet. It has to be good for people. Like I always say, it has to be good for people, environment, and make profit on that, right? And sometimes not everyone wants to profit, but they want to serve a community. So that is probably my intro take on.
Kevin, I know you would like to go next, particularly when you consider that Bature prides itself in putting the subcontinent on the map for some of the, what you call best and most unique beers in the world. And you also did say that while doing that, you're building on eco-friendly, community-focused, and part employee-owned craft brewery. That's I think that's the icing on the cake. So you want to speak to the essence of sustainability in itself, and how have you been able to pull this through?
Yeah, thanks very much for having us on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here. And thanks for reminding me of what the ambitions of the business were a year ago when we last spoke, because sometimes implementation can get in the way. And just to your first point there, if you're running a business and it's not successful, or it doesn't indeed make an income and a profit, then you're not going to be sustainable. So that definitely has to be front and foremost in your business plan, regardless of how environmentally friendly you would be. And to go to Andy's point, in some sense, some businesses will just jump on fads and they'll want to create something that will sell quickly and move quickly, which could be fidget spinners or Tamagotchis or whatever's moving quickly. Make something, sell it quickly, and then move on to the next thing, which is neither sustainable environmentally or indeed is the way the business wants to go. And then you've got other people in the other side of it who are, working in agriculture or otherwise that are introducing biocertified crops, climate resistant crops as well. So there's both extremes there. And we fit somewhere in the middle, in the sense that we want to be a for-profit business, yes, but putting at the heart of that a community and as much environmentally friendliness and sustainability as we can. But we also want to have an ambition of making a sustainable change in how people look at and appreciate not only beers in Nigeria, but Nigeria and West Africa as a centre of excellence for products. And of course, we are leading with our beer, which I'll just announce on this podcast, although I haven't officially announced it, is that we just won gold at the World Beer Championships 2023 last week, which was just significant to note that this beer now is recognised as the best stout in Nigeria. It's a gold level standard, and next week it will be competing in the global finals for the best beer in the world. So it is possible to do these things. So on the one hand, we're looking at a sustainable business that is changing people's views over a long period of time. On the other hand, we are looking at things such as how to use solar power, how to recycle as much as possible. And what's really key for the business is also our use of water, which I'm happy to talk a bit about later on as well.
There's also... Please go ahead, Dr. Amma.
Congratulations to Bature, because these are the kinds of narratives that we keep highlighting, that it is possible to have good, positive success stories come from this continent. Very often, the stories that leave this continent are one of desperation and corruption, name it, the list is very long. But to have a stout that has been brewed from Nigeria using local produce, freshly sourced produce, and to have it on an international global platform is commendable. Well done, Bature. And we're looking for more of these types of stories.
Yeah, thank you.
And it sounds like Kevin is smiling to the bank while I teach. So congratulations to that. All right. So I think something jumped at me when you say that employees can co-own Bature. Did I get that right? How does that work? Is it a vision? Is it being implemented? Perhaps Prince wants to speak to that.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. We have an employee ownership scheme that incorporates all members of the business, from the waiting staff, production team, housekeeping, everybody. So long as there's a time period that you need to be employed in the business, and you become part of that employment scheme. So as the business grows, aside from your salary, you're also gaining investment in the business. As we grow further and dividends come, these will be shared in proportion with everybody that's partaken in the growth of the business. I think we might be the first company to have such a scheme in Nigeria. I'm not too sure, but it's something that we're very proud to do, to make sure that everybody knows they are part of the business. It doesn't belong to Kevin, it doesn't belong to Prince, it belongs to everybody.
I mean, what better way to keep the employees around for a longer period of time when they know that they're not just working for someone, they're working for themselves. And it's a very laudable idea, I must say. But let us just be a little bit more practical here, because I know that we're talking to individuals who have done business at the sustainability level. There's a long list of market opportunities, like providing new products and services in some way that reduce energy, in other ways, perhaps reduce the use of natural resources. Let's have some experience sharing in this regard, because, I think it was Andy that mentioned, or Mr. Oyegoke rather, that mentioned earlier that sustainability is now the way to go. But help us break it down based on your experience in this light. How can a business owner, begin to adapt their products and services in a more sustainable way without affecting returns in their business?
Thank you, Nifemi. You always ask such good questions, and you make the brain cells go.
My head is twice its size now.
No, good stuff. I'll give you an example, right? A couple of weeks ago, I get called by clients. So my other hat is I'm a communications guy, right? And it's a restaurant. They've got 4 restaurants in London, right? Mixture of bakery and all of that. And he's like, and I get the call and say, okay, well, what can you do for us in terms of communication? And I said, how are you serving the community? He said, well, we've got these really good cakes. They're really good. They're the best. And we also have sushi, and we have burgers, and we have pizza. We're the only one on Kensington High Street that has, you can bring a family of 4 and have. Sorry?
Go ahead, please.
You can bring a family of 4 and have sushi and pizza and great burgers in one place. Fantastic. Great. How are you serving the community, right? And he says, but we want to put out this food. I said, but you're telling me it's great food, but there's a sushi restaurant. If I want sushi, I go to a sushi restaurant. If I want a burger, I go to the burger restaurant. If I want chicken, I go to Nando's, right? That's what people are equipped for. The only way that I can be successful in doing communication for you is, what are we doing for the community? Because that community, and that's why I love the Bature Brewery, of spreading the company, making sure that everyone in it owns it. Because I said, look, communication is actually easy because it's about numbers. If we talk to the community, then the community are the same people that become your clients. How do we serve the community? So in Kensington, it's one of the nicer parts of London, but they have a homeless issue, right? So let's feed the homeless. Then I know that my communication is going to work. And then people come in because they want to be part of the movement, right? So I think that when we think about business versus entrepreneur, when we think about sustainability, it's very important to think of value first. A lot of times we go for money. How can we make money? But actually, it's on numbers, because if I can provide value for 10 people, then I can provide value for 100 or 10 of those people, then it becomes 100. I'm going to make money and I'm going to be sustainable because everybody, we're crowd. So it helps my communication, it helps the business, and it's now inclusive.
You know, it sounds like sustainable entrepreneurship is a mindset. It's kind of behavior. It takes kind of skill to be able to think and see things clearly the way you've put it. Well, Kevin, you were saying something about water earlier.
Yeah, when we build this business, we realize that we will have an impact on the environment with anything you do, whether you're buying a new pair of trainers or you're buying a new car. For us, we made some decisions quite early up where we thought, right, what's the most environmentally friendly way to do things, but also benefits the business. And I think one great example of that is we chose aluminium cans over glass bottles. And many people were saying, oh, but glass bottles are recyclable. And we're like, yes, they are. But when you look at the resources used in the production of glass, the weight of it themselves, where you have to move it to the bottling site, then you have to clean, sterilize them using chemicals, then move them out, have them consumed, move them back again, clean, sterilize. Yes, the glass is recyclable, but actually the detrimental impact on the environment still is more so than aluminium cans. With aluminium cans, they are infinitely recyclable. So they can be, as long as that aluminium makes its way to a recycling plant, which there is in Nigeria, they have value. So they're always picked up and recycled. Secondly, they are a lot lighter. So that when you're transporting them, you have less CO2 emissions when you're moving cans, both to your facility to package, but also out there as well. So we made that decision as a business to go with cans as partly for that reason. Now, a lot of people didn't understand it or weren't really interested in that, but that's something that we decided. The next big task for us is water. So water use in beer making, even if you're very efficient, like a mega plant that you would see anywhere in the world, is about 8 liters of water to make 1 liter of beer. But we also recognize in Nigeria, many people don't have access to clean water on a regular basis. So the big challenge for us is how do we reduce our water as much as possible through recycling, reusing the water in the cleaning process, we're using it in the sewage process as well, to bring that ratio as reduced as much as possible. And then how can we then commercialize or incentivize people to pay more for our beer, knowing that for every say 100 cans you buy, we will build a borehole or a water treatment center somewhere else. And that's not something that's happening now, but that's something we have a vision to do as well, because we use so much water at the brewery that's one thing we would like to give back as well. And we would use that in a commercial sense in our marketing and plug into the community and say, yes, your beer costs 20 naira more or 100 naira more, but this is actually having more than just your consumption that you're enjoying. You're actually, by buying from us, you're contributing to wider goals as well. So that's one of our ambitions that we put down for our expansion, is to figure out how to use water more efficiently and launch a water access project as well.
Because
I
right
also
now, sorry, Dr. Amma, I just wanted to say, I don't know what people drink more, water or beer.
That's a very good
question.
question.
I know at the brewery what they drink more of, for sure. Maybe not across the country.
I was going to add that along with that, Bature is very keen on greenery. So when you're at Bature, unlike most places where you go and it's been stripped of plants and vegetation, you do see plants around, and they also use very good sustainable material in terms of building the spaces that they use at the brewery. One of the things that they have not mentioned, which is very critical component of this, is not only are they creating beer. I'm not a drinker, but I do recognize that people appreciate what they put forth, is the creative aspect. I mean, Bature Brewery is known for entertainment, and they feature local artists. So when you think about the creatives, which is a huge export from the African continent, but they're really focused on bringing light to the local creatives that have not left the country, the grassroots, so to speak. And I think that's very critical, but also celebrating the culture. And it's an integral part of Bature Brewery. So you can't look at it as a brewery that's manufacturing beer, and as much as
Did I miss something?
You lost me for a moment, so I
You're
don't
back.
recall where I am, but I'm back. So it's really important for us to look at the whole package, because again, going back to sustainability, yes, you can make profit, but that should not be the goal. It's the intention behind the business that's important. It's the value that you're adding to the community. It is the actions that you're taking to make sure that not only are you offering opportunity for employment, but you're also developing the individuals that are part of your organization. And it's one of the key reasons that Africa Sustainable Trade was started, is that so much is done in silos, but here you can look at a whole package and look at the nexuses, which is very important to us. And if you've ever been to Bature, and if you haven't, we invite you to come to Nigeria. There's ecotourism and be part of Bature. But even Africa Sustainable Trade we're very keen on intergenerational work platforms. It's the reason why we have an intern who is 16 that's working with us, building those skills at a very early age. And I must say, we need to pay more attention to the youth, because the youth have incredible ideas, but we have to listen to them, because they're the ones that are going to open up avenues and come up with visions that we have not even thought about. But opening up the mindset within the culture to recognize that there's some value, there is much value in giving youth an opportunity to speak, to participate, and to add to the economic development of the community and overall the country and the continent.
Indeed, Dr. Ama. The whole concept of Bature itself is a crazy one, a craft brewery in Nigeria, the first of its kind. And, the fact that you are choosing, I know that we've had conversations in the past with Kevin in Bature itself, and he told us the story about, his family's history with Africa and the rest of it. But I want to speak to Prince, because Prince makes beer lovable until you find out that he spent 25 years in the petroleum industry. So each time I remember that, I say, this guy has done a quarter of century. You cannot enjoy life like he's enjoying life. I peeped through his Instagram page, and I mean, Prince is just living the life and enjoying himself. But let's talk about how the business itself is thriving. I think it's been around for 7 years, thereabout. I remember reading somewhere a few years ago about plans to produce between 40 to 50,000 liters. Prince, how has it been trying to expand and, grab more of a market dominated by some really big brands?
Okay, before I answer that question, I just want to add to the sustainability on how we use our wastes. We do not dispose of our used grains by selling them. We have young farmers who we give the waste to for free, who are turning it into animal feed and fish feed. So our wastes are actually creating further businesses for other farming communities. And as we grow larger, the more waste we have, the more natural animal feeds we're producing. To your immediate question, how has it been? It's been very tough, but at the same time, very exciting. The ability to use indigenous spices and herbs and turn them into world-class beers with a fully Nigerian team. Our brewers are fully Nigerian, male and female. Head of quality control is a young lady. So it's exciting. Of course, there are the infrastructural challenges in Nigeria in terms of power, which is why we're looking to use solar energy as much as possible in our production facilities. In terms of manpower, we have to spend a lot to train our staff in service, delivery, and what is expected. Customer is your king. If they are not there spending their hard-earned money, you will not be in business. So we have to spend a lot of time training them and constantly training them. It is not an easy environment to operate in, but we're enjoying the challenge. The regulatory authorities, they do not understand the concept of a craft brewery. When they hear brewery, they think of Diageo, Nigerian breweries. So they're expecting money to be rolling in through the coffers. So we spend time also educating them of what we're doing. With regards to the major players, we are not competitors with them. We are part of a niche market in the beer industry that has not existed before. Nigeria is primarily a lager market, a lager being a style of beer, mainly European origin. And you have Guinness that makes stout, Irish origin. What we do in Bature is we create various styles of beers, ales, pale ales, lagers, and stout, using indigenous spices and herbs. We are the premium side of the beer market. And do not be surprised when you find employees of these big players coming in regularly to enjoy Bature beer. We are growing the industry rather than competing with them. And in future, there might be possible collaborations between us and them. It is not a competition at all. We are growing an industry in Nigeria that hasn't been done before.
Interesting. Have a listen to Prince. I mean, Bature needs no more advertisement. We want to especially once again welcome our live stream audience on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. You can also participate by dropping your comments. This is from Ronald Robinson, who says, arts and culture release creativity and produce community harmony. I think he was referring to Dr. Ama's submission earlier. If Kevin is still there, I was just wondering, 7 years after doing business in Nigeria, can you confidently say that Bature Brewery is a profitable company?
So we only fully set up in Lagos 2 years ago. So or just over 2 years ago. So we're still pretty young. The previous 2 years was COVID. And in 2019, 2018 is when we did the pilot. So we've not really been around for 7 years, although I've been brewing and experimenting with Nigerian flavors since around 2016 to get started. We've come a long way for sure, as you said, from an idea, a pilot, startup in Lagos, and now going into an expansion plan. Our key goal is to grow the business with everyone. So we're not looking at this junction to really be raking in profits and giving out dividends. Every penny we make goes back into the business to help it grow. So yes, we're EBITDA, or we're break even at the end of the day. We don't, but that's because we're putting everything we make into growing the business. There may come a time, hopefully there'll be a time when Prince and I can reward ourselves and put our feet up and say, hey, let's take a nice dividend out, but that's not on the horizon at the moment. Now it's all about growing the business. We're still so small and there's so much to do that we need those incomes to grow the business.
These things take time, but the future looks bright already. Let's bring Mr. Oyegoke back into this conversation. There's the community development, community stewardship angle to sustainability, the idea of taking responsibility for the well-being of the environment, doing something to restore or protect, the well-being of the space that we use. Usually, you hear resolutions from the UN. There are only, global companies, now have sanctions if they don't comply. But how do we make this a cultural thing, particularly in Africa, where even small businesses can begin to, weave community stewardship into the fabric of what they do? Mr. Oyegoke, are you there?
I think
Yes, I
he's
am.
muted.
Yes, did you get the
I am
point?
indeed. Yes, another really good question. I think that actually market trends happen. One of the things I wanted to amplify that you said is that it's a mindset, right? And it is a mindset, but also the market trends are directing us there. So necessity, as they say, is the mother of all inventions, right? The tougher it gets, or that we're evading or eroding the planet, we have to think innovatively, right? So think of the giants like a Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster wasn't, as an entity, was great, where you get your videos from that. But a giant like that went down because it actually wasn't sustainable. Digital was coming, and they refused to shift in that. There's a funny story that apparently Netflix went to Blockbusters for $1 million, right? And they turned them down, right? Worst mistake ever. Toys R Us. Toys R Us is a giant, went down because it actually wasn't serving the community. But how does a toy shop that serves kids are born every day, right? How does that go down? Because actually it's not moving with the trend. So ultimately, we have to be looking, and this is why we have to be inclusive, because our mindset is stuck. The older you get, they say that once you hit 35, I'm just shy of that. Your natural ability to be flexible, because every decision you make is more or less set, right? This is why we have to employ the young generation, because they're flexible. They come up with stuff, and their natural ability today, you speak to a young entrepreneur and they're thinking, how can we create an app that connects consumers and connects buyers and sellers? They're already thinking about the community. That's their natural mindset. So a lot of it is about us really imploring that collaborative nature so that everybody has a voice, because there's no right or wrong answer. The Ubers, who are the biggest car company or taxi company without taxis, or the Airbnbs, who are the largest accommodation without actually owning the physical is the way forward. But guess what? It's actually putting money and it's sustainable, because if I've got a spare room, great. But I'm going to earn that extra cash by renting it out. So I think that ultimately we're shifting towards that. Nigeria, in particular, 200 plus million people saw a shift in the currency going to 1,000 to 1. Necessity pushes that, right, okay, we need to earn Forex. Interesting question I wanted to ask Prince and Kevin is 7 years or between 3 to 7 years in business, what is your trajectory for exports? But before exports, what is your trajectory for inter-Africa trade, right? What are you doing for the neighboring countries? Is that in your plan? Is that, because one of the things that we really push, or the two pillars that make up Africa sustainable trade, is saying that there's not enough inter-Africa trade. It's easier to get from Lagos to London. There's currently about 14 to 15% inter-Africa trade. And we think that that's leaving a lot of money on the table, because the numbers are 1% increase to 15 or 16% is $70 billion to the GDP. So what does it look like when we add 10% just inter-Africa trade?
Who wants to go for Bature?
Maybe I can go on the export and trade, and then Prince can come on Forex, because he probably has a lot more experience in that than me. So there is, just to be quite clear, there is some technical limitations as a small brewery on how far we can export. All of our beers are made fresh and we don't pasteurize, which means that anything over 10, 12 hours in transit and our beer will start to not taste as great as it should. That is changing. So we are buying a pasteurizer, which will make us adjust our recipes slightly to maintain that flavor, even if it's transported longer, and will then allow us to start looking at export. So the reason we haven't done anything so far is just down to our production, and we still want to have the largest percentage of product remaining fresh and unpasteurized as well. In terms of regional trade, we have had approaches from Ghana and Rwanda and Benin, who would all like to take some of our product. Now, our challenge is that unless they're buying a whole container, we'd have to manage a less than container load. So that becomes quite costly. And when we start factoring those costs of shipping out of Lagos ports, it's actually quite expensive. So our current plan is to actually look at collaborating with a brewery in Ghana, where we'd actually export the raw material from Nigeria and then make the beers there. It would still be Nigerian ingredients. A majority would be Nigerian ingredients, our branding, and going out. So that's our plan for Ghana. In terms of export, we do want to look at the markets in London for the diaspora and the kind of craft beer community there. We have initial discussions going on with Dubai. It's another area that's looking for new beers from, let's say, the African continent itself. And then there's also the Chinese market, which we have some connections with, who are looking for very unique beers as well. And all those locations would be on a full container load being exported. So it's a good question, like why not just focus on exporting to Liberia, Sierra Leone, Benin, Togo, but at the end of the day, there's 200 million Nigerians that we need to get some beer to first before we would actually consider going into some of the smaller regions, with probably Ghana being the exception because of a potential collaboration now. But that doesn't answer that big challenge you said about growing Nigerian exports. I think it is something that should be done.
Sounds like we'd like to conquer Nigeria first.
Yes, it
And
is important for us to be able to conquer Nigeria, but I do think that there's added value when you can take it within the continent. And I think Yinka already mentioned this, that for Africa's sustainable trade, increasing intercontinental trade is a key pillar for us. Because one, it adds value, two, it helps with further investments, but it also creates jobs, and that's a key point. Here we are we're talking about Bature Brewery in Nigeria, which is very keen to hire regardless of the demographics. And I was actually really pleased. I think I talked about the fact that they have women employees there, or team members. And one of them is actually the, do you call it the master brewer? I think that's fantastic. What do you call it?
She's in charge of quality control.
In charge of quality control. And I think that's
Well,
fantastic.
Future
By
master
the
brewer.
way, she's a master brewer as well. By the way, did you know that women used to brew the alcohol? And that's traditionally a role that women have held.
Yeah, it was invented by women.
So
Men just
yeah. So what happened? What happened to all those women? Where are they? They've got
They
to do
weren't
something.
they weren't drinking enough.
The women weren't drinking enough, or the men weren't drinking enough.
They weren't drinking enough.
But that's something that
Yeah,
we should tap
absolutely.
into. What happened? Now, I do want to say that one of the things that we're all talking about here is bringing the youth, bringing the youth to the forefront, giving them a place at the table to participate in this economic expansion. I know that Africa Sustainable Trade, we actively have hired interns. We brought in interns to work on our social media because they understand that medium better than Yinka and I and the other partner, Lumide. I mean, if you were to add up our ages, it's almost 200 years. I hate to admit it. So why not go to the youth who come and tell us this is what is appealing, this is the content that should be out there. No, it's the truth, Nifemi. Andy looks like he just, what did he say? He just passed 30, she's just shy of 35. Don't buy it. But I think, no, it's the truth. We must be honest. So Benga was going to say something about Forex, and I apologize if I cut you off.
Well, the challenges of Forex are well known to everybody. I really don't have much to say at the moment because we're still watching the policies of government, the ups and downs of the exchange rate. Those are part of the challenges that we're facing in the country.
But how much impact is it having on your business? Because you talked about government policies. Recently, the government in Nigeria talked about approving some drastic measures to immediately reverse the current momentum. I don't know if that's something you've started feeling or that has impacted significantly on the business.
Well, in terms of Forex needs, we do try as much as possible to use indigenous products. So our Forex needs are, compared to a lot of others, are minimal. It does affect us in the inputs, but we use sorghum, which is a Nigerian-based sorghum malt that is produced locally. Our coffee, so all the things we add into the beers are locally sourced. So we do not face the challenges that the big players face in terms of large Forex needs. So in that regards, we are not as affected as they are, but it does affect us with regards to the hops, the barley that we need to bring in. But in the long term, we would hope we'd be able to source those locally as well, partnering with hydroponic farming companies setting up here in Nigeria. All these things with proper government policy guidelines can be mitigated against. And these obstacles can be overcome from the Forex angle.
So one thing is certain, everyone, the fact that consumers around the world are coming into awareness of the health benefits of what they consume, the environmental degradation. People now want to ask how much sugar is in this thing I'm drinking, or what impact will it have on my health subsequently. So businesses are also being forced to toe the sustainability path. But in conclusion, I'll just ask everyone to, talk to business owners in Africa who are feeling the economic pressure, of what appears to be our current reality, and how they can explore the sustainability alternative and, take advantage of the economic opportunities that it provides. Who's going first?
Femi, can I just add very quickly that it is true that there is a pinch in Nigeria, but we have to recognize that this economic challenge is felt everywhere in the world right now. It is not unique to us. It may just be a little bit heightened because of the Forex issue in Nigeria right now.
Indeed, absolutely. Who's going first? So consider it your closing remark as well. So make it as comprehensive and as short as possible. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go since I think we're in full circle. I think that the difference in life is the mindset, ultimately. And I think that if we're open enough to understand that inclusivity and everybody has a point of view and everybody's point is valid. What we thought wouldn't happen is now happening, and vice versa, right? So I think that if we work on the mindset of openness, I love the community with Bature Beer. And I think that if I was sitting as your consultant, I would say, okay, what if we brought some people to train with you, for example, to understand the process, and rather than looking at export, you're actually looking at some kind of franchise model. They come and train, they understand how the process is, because there are lots of people looking for opportunities, right? The clever, there's probably another Kevin and Prince in Kenya, in Sierra Leone, in Cameroon, right? Who you can bring on and say, you know what, we'll work as collaborative, we'll train you, this is the process, this is what it looks like, this is the model. When we get that right, then you go back and we support that. I think that the more open and radical ideas we can come up with, I think that's the future ultimately, because we have the technology to support, we're really in a global place. And I think that that's, and just to say one last thing, I can't emphasize enough that necessity really is the mother of all inventions. It's when we're pressured that the diamond is made, right? So I think Nigeria, the position that Nigeria is in, it's actually going to serve it. It's going to serve it to come up with new innovative ways that take us the next 30, 40 years.
Awesome. Let me quickly take Peter Amanboyo's message. It says, Bature Breweries is a prime example of blending entrepreneurship with environmental awareness through local sourcing, community empowerment, youth participation, and innovative products. They're shaping a sustainable path forward in the brewing industry. So I think you guys should just screen munch this. It will be a good quote on your website. Thank you. Thank you, Peter Amanboyo, for sharing. Who's next?
Well, I'm going to say this. Oh, Kevin, go ahead.
I just got my pen here, writing down all these quotes and tips from from the other participants. And I think the franchise model is something we would like to pursue down the line as well. I'd love to see our signature beers like Black Gold being sold all over West Africa first and then globally. And our other beers such as Lagos Lager doing a Ghana edition, whether it was Accra Ale or who knows what else we could come up with that would really reflect those local environments and local ingredients as well. For example, I was chatting to someone, I'd love to make a chocolate and groundnut stout using Nigerian cocoa and Nigerian groundnuts, but you could do that the same in Ghana as well. But yes, to the closing point, times are hard for everywhere, but in Nigeria specifically, yes, our Naira is devalued against, and it's making our imports more expensive, but we know the fuel prices and everything mean our employees are finding it hard to move around and to face, the cost of living has went up significantly. And that again puts pressure on us as a business to make sure that when they have needs that we can meet them, but also remain solvent as a business and continue forward. I would say that Baturi Brewery is here to stay. The amount of awards that we've won, the growth that we're going through is phenomenal, and it's amazing that the community's come around and backed us. However, it won't be an easy journey. We've got a lot of tough months ahead, but we're ready to expand, and that's what we're here to do. So thanks very much for having us on the call today.
You're welcome, Kelvin. Dr. Ama.
So I've been listening to the conversations today, and so many things have crossed my mind. We may be speaking of Baturi Brewery, but the whole idea of sustainability or sustainable entrepreneurship is really echoed in today's conversation. It is not about selling beer. It's about the impact of that organization creating beer. It is going to have an impact on the community. It's going to have an impact economically. It's going to have an impact on the environment. And that is what we need to model for future entrepreneurs and for youth as well. Times have changed, and innovation and creativity are really critical right now. Creativity gives rise to innovation. We need to change the way we package education. And I'm hitting on education today, because when you change the way you package education and you allow people to think outside the box, you're going to have greater innovation, greater creativity. Curiosity gives rise to all of these things. I think Yinka mentioned something about the mother of invention. It could be a mother, it could be a father, I don't know, but we'll go with mother for today. But the point I'm making is...
Mothers give birth.
Mothers give birth, and I know, can you imagine me saying that? Well, I like to be gender neutral as much as possible, but we need to encourage entrepreneurs to think outside the box. We need to encourage ideation. We need to find ways of supporting them, whether it's the women in the MSMEs or the young people who have incredible ideas but don't have the support. Mentorship is important, sponsorship is important, skills building is important, apprenticeship is important, but we have to start to think as a community. And when you start to think beyond just yourself and you look at the community, then you can go beyond your community to look at the country, to look at the continent. Kevin has come to the continent with an idea, and he has collaborated on that idea, which is now engaging a community of an intergenerational community. It doesn't get any better than that. And all of us need to start to think in that manner. What can I do and how do I collaborate and engage to make a difference, to have impact? And money will follow that, always does. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Ama. One major take home for me is that for a sustainable business.
What is your major take home?
Yes, for a sustainable business practice, as an entrepreneur, you must, continually look out for innovative ways to protect your environment, improve societal conditions, come up with good services and methods that reduce the detrimental activities, that we see all around us, while also generating profits for the business. So if you are curious about cultivating this mindset, I would just say, listen to this podcast again, maybe again and again, and I'm sure that you'll pick one or two things that can help you through the sustainable way. A big thank you, everyone, for being a part of this episode. Prince Benga Oguntayo, Kevin Conroy, Yinka Oyegoke, Dr. Ama, and there's also Peter Amanboyo somewhere there, who's been typing his comments through this conversation. Thank you, everyone. Do have a great time. Hopefully you'll join us again on subsequent episodes. I'm Nifemi Oguntoyet. Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone. And
Thank
please
you.
thank you to our audience and virtual audience. We really appreciate you. Thank you, Ronald, who just sent a message it's about jobs, housing, and building trade markets in Africa. Thank you, Ronald, for your participation. Bye for now. Namaste.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.